I want to ask
These
you,
weaklings are taking away all of our energy and resources. And you've decided to help them. That's disgusting to me.
You've never been to a refugee camp.
Why would I possibly want to go to a refugee camp?
Well, Zena, I've been
You have
there.
this masochistic love for
She's
weakness.
And what do you think that'll gain you?
Because women have more
'cause
sensitive
women are
natures.
soft.
I just want to make sure it isn't this firm resolve of this man who's over.
If you're going to get a soft reaction from me because I'm a woman, then you won't.
Not. If you were in an Ethiopian famine camp,
what would I be doing there?
Isn't that the problem of the Ethiopian government, to take care of their own people? Why should we be taking care of them?
No, I tell you what it's the problem of. It's the problem of a communist totalitarian ideology in the Mengistu government that put those people in the place. A philosophy, sir, a philosophy of dialectical materialism, a communist me-first philosophy that is not far from what you've said.
See,
now, just
okay,
wait.
Let's put it back on an academic level.
No, let's get back to the refugee camp.
Okay, now
You don't. I want to ask Zena. Zena, you don't want to feed starving people. You want them to die. That's what you're telling me.
No, I like your salesman technique of putting words in people's mouths.
Then you speak for yourself.
Did I ever say I want them to die? I'm saying, why do they exist in the first place?
Would you feed them?
Why would they be allowed to
Would you raise
exist?
money? Would you do what you could to collect the resources to feed them?
Would a wolf raise money to collect resources
for the
to
whelps
feed
of the land?
a monkey in the tree?
Just yes or no, would you?
I'm using analogies. No, of course I wouldn't. If I did that, wouldn't they become more and more dependent on me and less dependent on themselves?
No, not
Why is
necessarily.
that?
Well, that hasn't been proven yet.
No,
so.
not necessarily.
Well, if you look at the welfare state we have and the people who are on welfare,
What are
isn't
they
it
doing
true
to
that there are
improve their lot?
generations of
Nothing.
There are generations of welfare recipients.
I
It's not
understand
like
that.
it's not like just a temporary thing.
No one's defending welfare.
Well, but it's all the same
look,
But
category.
we're talking about
You
people. No. We're not talking about either lazy people or incompetent people.
Incompetent people.
No.
Yes, we are.
Sir.
The Ethiopian government is incompetent.
But the people who suffer the starvation
Why do we have a responsibility to help them unless we believe this nonsense in the Bible?
Because
if we're realists, we don't have
human beings, because they feel pain, because they suffer, because they hurt. Does not the hurt and pain
That
of
isn't enough. That isn't enough reason.
Does not the hurt and suffering of another human being at all
if the human being is worthy of my attention, I love people who are worthy of my love. That's very few.
And what you're saying
people
is
who are strong, I admire them. I'll help them. I won't help people who are weak.
And what you're saying is we have to take the responsibility of other people's actions upon ourselves when we've done nothing, absolutely nothing, to have that result. We didn't do anything to
Does that
promote.
Matter? They hurt. I mean, they're in pain. Does it matter? Does it matter? They hurt. I mean, you hurt. You call yourself an animal, but you hurt. You cut your finger. You bleed. You trip and fall and break your leg.
Where's the social agency that helps hurt Satanists? It doesn't exist. We help ourselves. And we encourage the same kind of self-discipline.
Well, you go to the
fortitude.
same hospitals I can go to.
And let me tell you something. When I go to a hospital, they see I'm dressed in black. They look at what they call occult symbolism, and they say, oh, you're a Satanist. I get treated last. That's because
you've chosen to wear the black.
And I'm proud of it. I'm not complaining. I'm saying,
why don't they
look
say,
at the reality of the world.
You're wearing a camel hair blazer. You're a Christian. Why should we?
I'm not asking for help.
I wouldn't treat you last.
Okay, but I'm telling you that's the way the world is. We don't look for help. Why should we give help to others?
This is, Zena, this is your father's book, the Satanic Bible. I mean, this is it. This is the diatribe of the devil that has brought together thousands of people in your belief system. Mm-hmm. I dip my forefinger in the watery blood of your impotent, mad Redeemer and write over his thorn-torn brow, the true Prince of Evil.
Isn't that poetic?
Do you believe that, Zena?
And aren't you taking it a bit out of context?
I'm reading it. I mean, I'm reading
Oh,
it.
Well,
okay.
isn't
Hand me
Jesus-
that Holy Bible, and I'll read you something too.
Oh, Zena, you know what I'm reading. I mean, you know the
Isn't
book.
Je-
It's page
by
30
our
right
standard,
here.
Jesus is the
I-
true Prince of Evil.
Will you
Let
let
me-
me read something from my own book?
Well, let me read it first,
Oh,
okay?
and why is that?
You don't want to. I'm reading.
Why can't I choose things to read as you would choose things from your
Well,
book carefully
because
to
I'm
read?
the person conducting the interview right now.
Well, maybe we should interview you.
But survival of the fittest. You
I
are a
gaze
social
into the
Darwinist.
glassy eye of
Why
your
aren't we-
fearsome Jehovah.
Right?
I pluck him by the beard. I uplift a broad axe and split open his worm-eaten skull.
Right?
Did you know who wrote that?
You tell me.
Do you know who
I
Ragnar
don't
Redbeard
know.
is?
Who?
Ragnar Redbeard?
No. Oh, yes, Redbeard. Yes, he wrote this. Well, your father's re-quoted it here.
Okay.
Whatever the case. Now, this is violent. This is abusive. It is
To Jehovah?
It's insulting, but beyond the insulting part of it, do you not find any reprehensibility in using this kind of language? Mind you, I don't believe that Buddha is God. I don't believe that Muhammad was a prophet. But I would never write something like this about Muhammad or Buddha.
That's
course
because you
not.
feel like you have to please everyone.
No,
all the
because
time.
I would have some feelings of sensibility. I mean, you don't feel that there's any inciting of any violent rage in people in this type of language.
Obviously there is.
Of course
I'm
there
asking
is.
Zena, do you?
Of course there is.
Oh, you do believe there is the inciting?
There's the inciting of some realization. I wouldn't say of a violent rage. There's the inciting, what I've heard anyway, that people read that and they say, yes, that's the way I've felt all my life.
All right, I want to go through the 9 satanic statements, and I'm going to ask each of you alternately, if you will, to elaborate on them so that there is no
They should be
misunderstanding.
pretty self-explanatory, but
Unlike
Okay.
the Christian Bible, the Satanic Bible speaks for itself. It requires no scholars to have councils
There's
of
no
Trent to
hidden
decide
meaning.
what this word meant or
I
that
wouldn't
word.
say that the Bible does either, but let's get to the 9 satanic statements, okay? Satan represents indulgence instead of abstinence. Zena?
isn't that self-explanatory? What is indulgence? That you have to be good to yourself before you can adequately be good to others? Is that evil? Is that wrong?
Are there any limits on that indulgence?
There's another section in the Satanic Bible that differentiates indulgence from compulsion.
Okay.
Maybe you'd
And
like to read that part.
self-destruction.
Would you not, let's suppose that a pedophile's indulgence were the molestation of children. Would you place that under this particular heading here of the first satanic statement?
It's
if that's his
clearly
indulgence?
stated. It's clearly stated in there how we feel about children and animals, and you know it.
I'm
says in-
asking you.
It
I'm
says in
asking
the
you.
Satanic Bible that we revere children and animals above all things.
So there are limitations on the indulgence.
Of course. There are limitations imposed by your own self-discipline and fortitude, not because you believe what you read from God. That's a very primitive and silly way to go about living. We live because we know what is right for us.
You know.
And to us, as it says in this,
You've constructed your own individual reality.
and I think it
determined
works a hell of a lot better than the Christian one.
Okay. Well, since you talk so much, I'm going to come back to you for number 2. Satan represents vital existence instead of spiritual pipe dreams. I think that does need some explanation. What do you mean?
I really don't see how it does need explanation.
What is vital
What is-
existence?
You don't know what vital existence is?
I'm asking you.
Our life here and now, living for, as I've said, all of the earthly and carnal pleasures. What is a spiritual pipe dream? Looking to some external deity or source for your answers. If something horrible happens to you, you just pass it off and say it's God's will. I'd call that a spiritual pipe dream.
Okay. Nicholas, Satan represents undefiled wisdom instead of hypocritical self-deceit.
Look at the world as it really is. Don't delude yourself into thinking it's a way that it is not by calling upon holy cant and scripture as your guide to life. Let's look at the real world, look at the human condition as it exists right here and now.
Okay. Number 4. Satan represents kindness to those who deserve it instead of love wasted on ingrates. Zena?
Well, I already explained that too, insofar as turning the other cheek. Kindness, if you're kind to me, then obviously I will be kind to you. We treat people as they treat us. If someone's going to be rude to us or treat us inappropriately, then they have to expect that in return. We won't waste our kindness on what we would consider ingrates, and that is being treated with disrespect or rudeness.
Number 5, Satan represents vengeance instead of turning the other cheek. And let me flip over here to page 33 and also quote in companion to that, quote, hate your enemies with a whole heart. If a man smites you on one cheek, smash him on the other. He who turns the other cheek is a cowardly dog.
Doesn't that speak for itself?
Yeah.
What's your
Well,
point?
what would you do?
I'm just asking you. I'm asking you. These are your beliefs.
Right,
Hollywood
those-
Boulevard, and you are attacked by a gang of drug dealers for no apparent reason. What would you do? Would you bow
Pray
down
for
to
them,
them
or
and
would
say,
you
"I'll pray
strike
for
them
you"?
back?
Or would you try to do something to survive?
Well, you see,
see,
I don't.
you
You're
s-
asking. Do you want me to
No,
answer
you
the
ask
question?
me
I'll be
hypothetical
happy to answer the
questions.
question.
So,
You see, I most certainly, if my life were endangered by someone who murderously or violently were attacking me, now some Christians would differ on this. Some would say kneel and pray. I'm not one who would kneel and pray. I don't run 5 miles a morning for nothing. I'd run. I'd get out of there as fast as I could or fight for my life. But that's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about vengeance and revenge.
If you wrong me, however you wrong me, I will give you that same wrong back.
But if someone is physically striking you with their fist or hitting you with a steel rod, there is no question in anyone's mind you're being wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Not always so.
But in the abstract, and this is what we get back to earlier, it seems that you reserve the right always to determine who is the wronged party by your natural brute instincts.
Yes,
and what
we
I'm
do.
saying
That's right.
is that the Bible tells us that the heart is deceitful and wicked, and who can know it? And common sense tells us that we all have been mistaken at some point in our lives,
The Bible-
assuming that we were the wronged one, when in fact we may have been the person hurting someone else.
The Bible teaches us to hate our own instincts. The
No,
Bible is
no.
a guidebook to how not to survive.
No.
The hero of the Christian religion is someone who willingly sacrificed themselves. Now, to me, someone who willingly dies on a cross and thinks that's a victory is a neurotic person. I don't worship such a God. So if you want to sacrifice yourself, go ahead. We want to live and survive, and you live by returning a wrong back to the person. It's very
and
simple.
I think that's the irony, too, of all the accusations of our sacrifices, whether they are children or animals or whatever. The whole concept of sacrifice is a Christian concept. Because we don't believe in any anthropomorphic deity, there's no need to sacrifice anything for anything.
Well, we'll get to that. I'd like to come back to that in a moment if I can, please. And if I forget, you please bring it up, all right? I want to get through these statements here. Number 6, Satan represents responsibility to the responsible instead of concern for psychic vampires. Zena?
A psychic vampire is someone who drains you of your vital energy, someone who is constantly looking to you for their support and for their energy. Responsibility to the responsible means if you demonstrate that you have a certain amount of responsibility, you will gain that much more responsibility. Your actions are rewarded by what you achieve or what you acquire, rather than being siphoned off to someone who hasn't deserved them.
You know, Zena, before there was any Nobel Prize for Mother Teresa, and really before most anyone knew who she was, I visited her home for the destitute and dying in Calcutta, and I saw the poor people laying there in the throes of death. I saw her comforting them, touching them, giving them what food and water they needed. Those, by your definition, were psychic vampires because they could give nothing back.
And you don't think Mother Teresa had some ulterior motive
No.
that she wanted these people
I
to?
really don't.
You don't think she wanted them to see her point of view?
No, as a matter of fact,
No,
these
I
these
don't
people
think
could
she
not.
did,
I don't
actually.
think. As a matter of fact,
Because
speaking
most missions or missionaries want to convert people. They want people to see
save
their
souls. Isn't that what Christianity is
that's a
designed
presumption
to do?
I think that you people have made, but
Well,
you're
I think it
you're
goes
talking,
deeper
I
than
think
that.
you've
I
made
think-
that presumption, but I think I've visited more
I think-
mission
I
compounds.
think
Let me finish.
okay.
I think I've visited more mission compounds around this world than you have. And I remember being in a Bangladesh refugee camp some years ago during that time of bloody war. And I saw a Salvation Army officer standing by the bedside of a woman who had walked 100 miles just to get there to escape the fighting, and she was dying. He could not speak her language. She had moments to live. And I said to him, "You cannot convert her. You know that, don't you?" He said, "Yes, I know that." I said, "Why are you doing it?" He said, "Because I feel it is necessary to offer her a few moments of tenderness and comfort in the last minutes of her life." He had nothing to gain by it.
Well,
now
let me
she
say
was
something. Let me say
she
something.
was a psychic vampire
Let
by your
me- okay.
definition.
Underneath the whole Christian theology and the whole organized structure of Christian dogma is what I feel is a masochistic, almost love and wallowing in despair and death. Christians love nothing more than to see suffering so they can go and whine and moan over it and help people and feel how good they are that they're helping people. It's a very morbid
Really
religion.
believe that?
You worship a God who's nailed and bleeding to a cross. Everything in the Bible drips with morbidity
eat
and
his
death.
flesh and drink his blood.
And yet you
There's a lot
accuse us of
morbidity.
being morbid. If you want to be around dying and sick people all the time, then you have every right to, but we are not obliged to help these people.
And shouldn't that be a choice? Shouldn't that be I thought this was a free country. Shouldn't that be a personal choice from one individual to the next? Certainly there are going to be people who derive pleasure from doing that. And who are you to say that there are going to be people who don't want to do that? Who are you to say that that's wrong?
Maybe it is a greater evil, when all is said and done, to keep millions of people alive who are not ever going to be productive, who are going to drain all of our resources and create a stagnant world.
But to comfort them in the hours of their death, to offer an act of human kindness.
Well,
That's
what
why
you
there's
are
people
for.
like you. You don't want us there.
You want us to be like that as well?
You go hug them. I don't want
Well,
to.
if I were that dying person and you were standing over my body, yes, I would want you to be like that. If you were dying...
Just by being a human being, you don't deserve my
you never
love and
suffered
respect.
pain?
Of course. And to those I love that suffer pain, I will comfort those who I like, those who I favor. I'm not everybody's friend.
Well, I'm sure you, Zena, heard the story from the Bible of the Good Samaritan. Are you familiar with that story?
Right.
Do you know what it's about?
To argue this point is
Well,
just going round and round.
No,
because,
it is an important arguable point because
Your main concern in Christianity is to help the weak. Christianity was designed as a religion for slaves, after all. Historically, if there is any truth to it, the first followers of Christianity were slaves in Judea. Now, is that not true?
No, that is not true.
Who were the first followers of Christianity?
In fact, the first followers of Jesus Christ were not only common working people, but some of the most eminent intellectuals of the day, such as Saul of Tarsus, who was...
Well, Saul of Tarsus is the person who recreated the Christian religion in his own vision and rewrote the scriptures in the first place.
Well,
he caught on to a
I'm sorry,
good
but
thing.
that's hardly historically accurate.
That's,
I wonder...
That's really interesting, because one Christian will tell us one thing and another will tell us
Christianity is fine.
Well, what did they tell you?
Christianity is fine for people who have this great love for weaklings. Well, we don't have it, so why must we be forced to be a part of your love for all mankind?
Well, you certainly must not be forced. Nobody would force you to do anything. I guess...
Can't you understand that?
I find it difficult to accept.
You really want us to put up a fight or put up an argument, but there's no...
Go help them.
I just wonder how
you've
been able to psychologically insulate yourself in such a way. I cannot. I mean, I have not always been a Christian. Mm-hmm. And long before I was a Christian, it was just a matter of human responsibility to another creature, though I may not have believed them to be a creature of God as I do now. Mm-hmm. if they were suffering and they were in pain and they were hurting, I reached out to them.
How much clearer do I have to make it? A strong animal does not spend all of their energy and time on earth helping every weak animal. You help those in your own pack, in your own tribe, those who are like you, and those who are not like you and who are not contributing to you, you do not have a responsibility to.
If you want it on
Nicholas,
simpler terms, you can say that we are of different species.
Let's get to an issue that Zena raised a little earlier, and it's one that I know is a very sensitive one to you. And that is the issue of the allegations of human sacrifice. Now,
It's not that sensitive.
I will first of all go on record as being very clear in stating that my understanding the Church of Satan official ideology, the party line is that we do not condone, we do not permit, we do not practice or encourage human sacrifice.
Correct.
Okay. Mm-hmm. What of those people who do read the Satanic Bible, who do hear your father's teachings, and then practice animal and or human sacrifice in his name?
Satanists. Just because you read a book doesn't make you that thing.
How many people have read the Holy Bible, misinterpreted it, and acted on it?
Do you know what John Wayne Gacy said to all of his victims?
He read the
before they
23rd
died?
Psalm. Should we now say that John Wayne Gacy is a Christian murderer? It's a
Well-
foolish, sweeping generalization.
Okay.
Anyone can read a book. Mark David Chapman, who killed John Lennon, read Catcher in the Rye. Should we
And
ban
Leopold
Catcher in
and
the
Loeb
Rye? Leopold
read
and Loeb
Nietzsche.
wrote Nietzsche. Let's ban Nietzsche. Where do you
Well,
stop?
I think there is a serious issue in terms of artistic freedom of expression that you've raised. I also think one has to determine whether or not inherent in the language expressed, the deeds that result from it are philosophically consistent with
There
it.
are far more violent things written than the Satanic Bible. So you can't tell me that that was written in such a way to promote violence.
Well, I'm not saying that it was. I'm just saying
Well,
that it lends itself by the nature of
lot
the
of
language
things lend
used.
itself.
Well, let's read it. Let's read it. Okay?
Let me quote something. Jesus said,
let me- you can
I
quote-
come
you
not
can-
with peace, but with a sword. Now, if I'm a Christian and I say, well, I have a sword, I'm going to go kill non-Christians. It's a matter of interpretation. I would say...
No, that is absolutely philosophically inconsistent with the larger worldview of the teachings of Christ. And anyone would
just
know
as
that.
it is with Satanism.
Well, okay.
Why blame
just-
the acts
I
of
just
a
ha-
few
I have the book.
nincompoops on a book?
We'll read from this book if you'd like, but let's read this book, all right?
Because this one's more interesting.
Mad dogs are destroyed. Okay? The fact remains, given the opportunity, they would destroy you. Therefore, you have every right to symbolically destroy them. And if your curse provokes their actual annihilation,
Rejoice.
rejoice that you have been instrumental in ridding the world of a pest. He is made to be trampled underfoot.
You love quoting that. I've heard you say that before.
Have you?
Yeah, you really say it with gusto.
You could be a really good Satanist,
You
given
never
an
know
opportunity.
who's listening to you when you're on the radio. Well, but Zena,
It was just that little snippet that someone played for me.
you have every right to symbolically destroy them. I'm
Don't
a
you
writer.
have- Now wait.
I'm a
don't you-
writer and a
Wait, let me
journalist. I
say
know
something.
the responsibilities
Bob,
of
let me say
language.
something.
If your curse provokes their actual annihilation, in other words, you're only doing this symbolically. But if in doing this curse, putting the pins in the voodoo doll or whatever, if in fact they actually do die, rejoice.
Of course. Why is that inconsistent
I'm
with our
asking you,
philosophy?
Zena. Your father wrote this book.
Right. So
If
what
the
you're
person
saying?
actually dies as the result of the curse you put on them, rejoice. Believe
Well, what
me,
do you
I'm
think
trying
would
to be,
promote
I'm
a
trying
curse
to be,
like that?
give you the opportunity. If there's an out here and you don't mean that, fine, say so.
Of course we mean that. What do you want me to
Rejoice.
say? Oh no, he didn't mean to write that. Of course. What do you think we would use a destruction ritual for?